explode into a big, big cacophony of moths any minute now. Good thing you are watching the Vomitorium, or else you wouldn't know this. You can support the show at www.streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Good luck in the apocalypse!
Thank you. Let's move in to the show. Hey, welcome everyone to the Vomitorium Live. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, here to talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about today. Hope you guys are doing fine, whether you happen to show up anytime during the show or watch it in the future, which is kind of how we get most of our views, or people who watch or listen to the replay. But hey, we're here. We're live. And I'm probably going to complain about stuff. I think that's usually what I do. Complaining is most of my mode of operations at this point in life. Let me think if I have anything on my list that was positive to talk about before I actually get into the complaints. No. It's all complaints. It's all complaints all the way down. That's just how life goes these days. It doesn't have to be. You can have a more positive outlook on it. Actually, when I'm not on the show, I'm not complaining anywhere near as much as I do on here. But that's why you tune in, right? To hear some older than he has any business to be, yelling into the internet, complaining about things, guy doing what he does. So I think the first thing I want to complain about is earlier today, I got a notification that the Steam replay for 2025 is live, which I guess is kind of cool. It would be cool. It would be cool if everyone and their goddamn mom wasn't trying to get me to click on their replay. I think this is the problem with us living in some type of like attention meta. We live in a world where the entire economy is attention, and everybody needs you to be thinking about their product all the time, nonstop. If you haven't visited in 5 seconds, you need to come back and visit again. And Steam's one of the better ones. I don't really want to blame Steam. I feel that they probably just thought, oh, it's cool, everyone does this, let's hop in too. And some other people might have been thinking the exact same thing, but it gets too much. I've got notifications for like 15 things in the last week for me to check out their replay. And I can't stand anymore. I do not want to look at one more goddamn replay. I had one for YouTube. I had one for YouTube Music. If you run multiple accounts, you're getting notifications for this for multiple accounts. I don't even want to know what's going on. The only one that actually matters is the main personal account I use for viewing things. Twitch had a replay. Thankfully, I don't use Spotify, but I know they had a replay recently too. Everything is like, hey, let's look back at the year. Let's be nostalgic so that you can be even more attached to our product and keep using it into the future. And very few of these are actually worth giving your time to. Does it actually matter what the data was for my participation and engagement on your platform in the last year? Right, I think with the Steam replay, I haven't played a lot of Steam this year. At all. Because I mostly have not been playing games on my computer. I've been either using the PlayStation 5 in the living room, or I've been playing on the phone here, right? I play a lot of games on my phone these days. Mostly gacha games, but other things as well, or occasionally, once in a blue moon, I'll play something on some other console, like my Switch, or I'll borrow Marsupial Switch 2 to play Donkey Kong Bonanza, as I've been the last week since it got here. But mostly I play on his PlayStation in the living room. That's what I use, is the PlayStation 5. To play Star Rail, to play all the other gacha games, to play non-gacha games as well. I've started playing Where Winds Meet. I don't know if I'm going to stick to it, but I started playing it. So my Steam replay just really hasn't had much in it. It's been Uma Musume. It was all Uma Musume. But the more important part is that I'm just upset at how many of these apps are sending me notifications all the time to check out their replays. I don't care what I did this year. Stop sending me notifications. It's infuriating me. It's infuriating me to no end. I did get a chuckle out of it, though, when I looked at the percentage of game genres or tags that I participated in, and it was just a long spike towards horses. How is horses even a game tag? The horse girls aren't even actually horses, although they're based off of real ones. How is this a game tag? What other games get this? Is there like a Barbie equestrian game that also gets the horse game tag? I'm just really, really confused on how all of this works. But if you had interesting stuff in your Steam replay, you can feel free to share it. Preferably, I mean, you could in the chat, but preferably in the comments later, because I'm going to forget everything that's said in the chat during this stream. Probably will forget everything in the comments within like a week after it's commented, just to be fair. I guess there's also, I don't know if it has a Steam version. There's like this big gacha game in Europe that's basically equestrian. And that is one of the worst ones ever, I think. Or was it in Europe or it got banned by Europe? I don't remember. But when it comes to nickel and diming you, there is a microtransaction equestrian game with actual horses. Was the whole reason the EU started cracking down on this stuff was specifically because of that game. So if there's a Steam version of that, I guess the horse tag makes more sense. But stop sending me your replays. What's the next thing? Like I said, I already got a Twitch replay. I already got two different YouTube replays because I use YouTube Music. I got a Steam replay. I've got... I think I had one for Instagram too, but I didn't bother to look at it at all. Next thing I know, Google Play is going to want to send me a replay to look at my gaming activity on my phone for the last year. I'm sure PlayStation probably has one. I know Nintendo did, actually. I remember Nintendo put one out that you could go and look at your entire history of everything. I don't need more replays. You don't need to be that fixated on your own gaming history, okay? It's not important. Maybe if you and your friends have a culture, a little custom of sharing that stuff, you do you. I'm not going to judge too much, but what they want you to do is they want you to share this stuff out into the ether. Share it on social media so that other people see it, and hopefully it prompts a chain of events where more people go in to check the replay, which gives even more attention to their apps. And it's just a deadly cycle of people never leaving the app. Attention culture. That's what it is. It's an attention economy. Can you come on and talk about mean comics? No, why would you want to talk about mean comics? I'm going to talk about, because I guess I've been ranting about replays for the last 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about a different thing that's been bothering me. For ages, actually. It has been bothering me forever and ever and ever. Ever since I first started watching anything that's an adaptation of something. But mostly since I've been watching anime that's been brought over here to the West. And it's not the localization. That's not the thing I'm going to complain about, although there's plenty to complain about when it comes to localization. No, this is actually an issue over on their home turf that bleeds through whether it's localized or not. And I don't know why studios feel they know better than the thing they're adapting. I understand having to make certain changes to make an adaptation okay. It's a different medium, right? It is different. There's some things that work better in different mediums than other. For example, if you were to take a book, like a novel, prose doesn't translate as cleanly into a visual medium, so you have to make some selective decisions on that. Now, comics, on the other hand, are already a visual medium. They aren't an animated medium, so you do still have to make some changes, but you don't have to make as much. You can mostly use the comic as a storyboard for your show, which we see happening a lot more often now, but still not to the degree that might be desirable. So one of the ones I mentioned this yesterday that I might do a little ranting on this sometime this week, and I think I'll just get to it now. But Ranma 1/2, the current one, which I love a lot, actually. I like it way more than the original, and I'm somebody seen the original many times. But that even goes back to complaints about the original, where they did so many decisions where they thought they just knew better, I guess, or they wanted to fit the time of year or some other thing. They just didn't want to adapt. And back then, it wasn't as much of a desire from the audience to have accurate adaptations, so I'm not even going to entirely blame Studio Deem for the original adaptation. In fact, if you were to poll Japanese people from the time, they mostly would have said, why would we want it to be a one-to-one adaptation? We could just read the book, which is a big big opinion that audience have had almost collectively for a long time, even if they're people who would never read the book, which is probably one of the main reasons why adaptation should be more accurate, because a lot of people aren't going to jump mediums to see how it was originally. My complaint specifically with the current Nappa adaptation of Ranma, while it is leagues better at being accurate than the old Studio Dean one, was this season they made a very, very odd decision when it came to reorganizing the story, and some things just don't work as well because of that. Like, at all. Maybe somebody who's never seen the original or never read the manga, more so, because then you can't be confused by the filler that was added to it, may not have noticed the awkwardness of it, but maybe they felt it just a little bit. They decided that, one, something that was supposed to happen earlier in the season was pushed to later in the season. They reordered the Romeo and Juliet episode to be after Ukyo appeared, even though it happened earlier, which is kind of weird because, like, Ukyo starts attending their school, but she's nowhere to be seen in the crowd at the stage play, even though the entire school was said to have been there. And you'd think that Ukyo would probably be doing certain things to sabotage it anyway in her favor if it had happened before she showed up, but she's just not even in that episode because she wasn't in that chapter of the manga. But that's actually the least prominent offender in this situation. The part that bothered me the most was there's this short little arc. It would be at least a couple episodes called The Breaking Point, which involves Ranma and Ryoga. Spoilers, I guess, if you're watching this. I'm just going to tell you to stop watching the replay now if you care about this and skip forward 5 or 6 minutes. I don't know. But it involves Ranma and Ryoga separately going off into the mountains to train. Ryoga being trained by Cologne to learn a technique known as the Bakusei Tenketsu, or the Breaking Point. And then Ranma is being dragged up there by his dad so that he can also train, because you can't let your rival get ahead of you. That's a bad attitude to have, Ranma. And he's trying to basically perfect the chestnuts roasting on an open fire technique, right? This is a very important one for character development, especially with the little arc that reveals that Akane can't cook, and that's a major reoccurring gag that will happen later, but that's not affected by any of the stuff that it was pushed past this time, because they're moving this to the next season, even though it was supposed to happen before Hapasai even shows up. But that's an issue. Hapasai, when he shows up, ends up beating up both Ranma and Ryoga at the same time, which is a much bigger deal if they had already gone through this training arc. Because when the reason Ryoga needs to go through it, when he shows back up, Ranma hands him his ass easily. He can't even compete with him. So, if Ranma had already gotten to this state, and he has already gotten to this state, why should Ryoga fighting Hapasai even matter? There's a lot of like little inconsistencies that start getting created by moving things out of order this way. And it bothers me. What bothers me more about it is that they did this to favor having in a 2-part episode for Moose returning. That could have literally just been the start of next season, because the Breaking Point probably only needed 2 episodes. So if you just cut that off and moved it to the next season, everything would have fit fine anyway. Like, it's a dumb decision. I don't know why they did that, and it's bothering me. It's not the end of the world. It's still a good adaptation overall, but it is infuriating me. I am irate because of it. And I think it's because otherwise the adaptation is doing so well that then when they make stupid decisions like this, I'm like, oh my God, you almost had it. You almost had it, and then you drop the ball right there. But it's still not as bad as things used to be. So this thing has also been bothering me. I've been rewatching Bleach recently. Not, I would say, what's the word I want to use on that? It hasn't been taking a lot of my attention. I haven't been watching it passionately. It's something that I've been passively watching while I do chores and stuff. Like if I'm washing the dishes, if I'm cleaning the kitchen or whatever, I'll put it on the main TV because it's on Hulu and I can put it on the TV. And I'll get through like an episode or two at a time. And I really like Bleach as a series. I'm not even going to put caveats for it. I'm not going to say that Bleach is good despite this or despite that or for what it is. I think Bleach is just good. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's good. While I'm watching it, though, I'm constantly being reminded by Studio Pierrot's idea that they wanted to basically force Kubo into rerouting his story to putting Ichigo and Rukia together. It becomes very, very obvious very early on, right? Even from the opening, there are 5 main characters in Bleach. 5, right? You have Ichigo, you have Rukia, you have Orihime, you have Chad, and you have Uryu. In order of importance, at first, later on, Orihime actually eclipses Rukia of importance in the series. In the opening, there is a carousel that shows off the important characters of the show. Only 4 of them are there. They just completely cut Orihime out of the carousel altogether, trying to imply that she's not that important, even though she is one of the people that go to the Soul Society to help save Rukia. They also delay the story with her and her brother who becomes a hollow, even rewriting it slightly to kind of like diminish the friendship that she's already built up with Ichigo during the time that she had moved to their school and area. And they keep trying to play it off, which at this point, most of the story hadn't been written yet. One of the things that you know about Bleach and a lot of the stuff that Studio Pierrot has picked up, they've done similar things during Naruto with characters like Sakura and Hinata and deciding that they knew better than the actual mangaka on that one too. They have a tendency to try to push ships or other parts of the plot that they want to happen, and hopefully it'll change the mangaka's idea, what they want to do, because they'll get enough of the fans to rile behind whatever their story is, because they know more people will watch the show than they will ever read the manga. And that is something that is just consistently bothering me throughout my rewatch, because Orihime is a good character. A lot of people don't think so. Until Thousand Year Blood War, I've heard that they've been doing a much better job with Thousand Year Blood War. I haven't gotten to it yet. I can't say much about it because I haven't gotten to it. Part of this rewatch is eventually I want to get through this so I can get to Thousand Year Blood War. I know the events that happen because I've read the manga. I just don't know how well they're doing an adaptation of it. But I've heard that they're doing much better with Thousand Year Blood War than they did with the original series. But I would forgive people for not liking Orihime as a character because how they handled her in the original series. They cut most of her best parts, or they cut them short as well, just diminishing her role in favor of the way they wanted to push the story. They also had so much filler, but that was just from the fact that they would pick up manga so soon that they would be on the tail of whatever manga that they were adapting. So it's like, well, this time we have to put a whole season filler from a story that wasn't even in the manga. about characters that aren't even in the manga. Which I haven't gotten to the bounce yet. I have not decided if on this watch through I'm going to skip the bounce or not. A lot of times I tell people to skip them. They're not important at all. They did not exist in the manga. You just don't have to watch it. But I may just watch it anyway for complaint's sake. Let's see. Let's catch up on what Fizz is saying about the topic. He says, I've never seen Bleach, nor does he have any interest. That's fair. It's not for everyone. And honestly, for people, I actually do recommend they read the manga instead of watching it. But if you're not interested, you're not interested. And he thought that Bleach was just a ripoff of Yu Yu Hakusho. I wouldn't call it a ripoff. Early on, it is definitely inspired. You can see the inspiration in it. It's also aiming for the same audience that Yu Yu Hakusho had, though there is quite a gap between the stories. The Soul Reaper being like a spirit detective is definitely similar at the beginning. Bleach stays closer to its plot than Yu Yu Hakusho does. Yu Yu Hakusho, great series. I love it. I'm going to go back and rewatch that sometime. I watched the Netflix adaptation, which was actually pretty good despite the fact that they decided to take, like, I think a third of the entire manga and squish it into 5 episodes. But they did a good job for what they covered. I liked the effects. I thought they handled the characters pretty well. But Yu Yu Hakusho kind of loses the plot really fast, right? It starts off with this really cool spirit detective idea about a guy who has to go and solve mysteries and fight ghosts in his town after recovering from his own death. And then it spirals into, let's go to the demon world, fight some people, here's a tournament. And then it just becomes tournaments from then on out. It definitely lost the plot. I love the series. But Bleach, on the other hand, the main plot involving the Soul Society and everything was kind of hinted from the very beginning. Like from ground one. Especially because Rukia making him a substitute Soul Reaper after losing her own abilities is going to have to come back eventually, right? Like, it's set up for that to happen. And even after the whole Soul Society thing, they do come back and they're constantly doing things in both worlds. Him fighting Hollows is a very important part of it. Uncovering the bigger conspiracy of the Soul Society because there's some people that are trying to make some changes and usurp it. All of that stuff, I think, is set up a lot better. Bleach does a better job at sticking to its plot than Yu Yu Hakusho does. I think Bleach is probably one of the better epic mangas. If we're talking about how long it ran, it is definitely an epic. For sure. It was definitely my favorite during the time, like, when people would say, like, the big 3. There was One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach all consuming shonen culture back when I was in high school. And I always preferred Bleach over the other ones, just personally. Though, one of the reasons I thought I didn't like Naruto at all is just because of how bad the adaptation is. I know a lot of people love the anime, but it's not good. I went and I read the first, like, several chapters of it. And then later I ended up reading some more. I'm like, oh my god, this is actually a pretty good manga. Why did the anime decide to adapt it the way they did? I'll never know. Other weird Studio Pierrot decisions. They were the ones working on that one as well. The funniest thing about Ranking of Kings, Fizz shows, it says, was it basically lied to the audience about there potentially being a tournament arc, only for it not to happen. Well, one of the funniest things about Bleach is the Soul Society is functionally a tournament arc, just not a tournament, right? It's basically taking a ladder tournament, but disguising it as a rescue mission, which is, I think, the best way to do it. where it's like Ichigo and his crew are going to have to fight a bunch of different bosses in succession, getting to the stronger and stronger ones to fight Rukia. It's something that doesn't even look remotely like a tournament unless you look at the pathing of it on paper. I think it's very brilliant. It's like any type of progression, right? Like Mortal Kombat's tower. You could do this in any way without having to actually write it like a tournament with onlookers or anything. Especially because in an actual tournament arc, you don't ever get through every single match in the tournament anyway. You're only ever looking at the stuff that the main characters fight to make it to where it's really no different than a linear progression at all. There's stuff happening in the background, but background fights just don't matter. But I remember that the part that I'm at right now, I think, is probably where my initial interest in Bleach was waning the first time I watched it. I'm right around, I think, episode 26. Now, I have rewatched the first couple seasons again before I had finished it the first time and was able to get back into it. But I remember the first time I ever saw the show, I had watched a marathon of it. And I was really digging the first season. And when they got around to the Soul Society, they lost me for a while. I don't know why I was feeling that way. I figure maybe I was digging the hollow fighting on Earth more. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough and I didn't realize the seeds that they had planted for the Soul Society early on. So it felt like whiplash to me. Every time I rewatch it, though, it feels like it just progresses naturally. And I probably must have been playing a video game or something the first time I watched it, like on my Game Boy Advance or DS. Actually, I think it was probably mostly on the DS at the time. And I probably just missed a lot of key points that I have never missed on rewatch. But it's good. I can't wait for 3 years from now of watching one episode or two at a time while doing chores, of finally getting to see the 1,000-Year Blood War. But hey, you know what? It might be done by the time I get to that point anyway, so I'll just be able to watch it straight through. Funny enough, talking about Bleach, just to slip this in, apparently they're going to Fortnite. There's a few Bleach characters that are going to be in there, and it's going to be Ichigo, obviously, Rukia, Orihime, and Uryu. It's kind of sad that Chad's not going to be there, but if you were going to pick 4 of the 5 main characters, Chad is sadly the least important of them to the story. Great character, still important. He is one of the 5 lead characters. He's just the least important of the 5. I don't play Fortnite. I will not be getting these characters in Fortnite, but hopefully people who like them that play Fortnite will enjoy playing as them. I know if I did play, I would be grinding to be able to get all of them if that's the way you got it. Heck, I'd probably shell money if that's the way you had to do it. I do really like the Bleach characters. Not so much Uryu, though. I think of the main cast, Uryu is probably my least favorite. It took a while for him to grow on me. Though the funnier bits, like his perfectionism, the fact that he is a home ec guy, does sewing and everything. Every time those bits came up, those were the things that made Uryu as a character grow on me. Otherwise, he just kind of seemed like a cocky prick. And he is a cocky prick, but he's a cocky prick with a lot of redeemable qualities after you get to know him. So that's pretty cool. The other thing I wanted to rant about today, because today is a day of ranting, is the cast of the Street Fighter film coming up. Because here's the thing, I actually think quite a bit of the cast is great. I think their casting was spot on for quite a few characters. But there's a few key ones that just boggle my mind. I'm like, why? Why did you cast this person as that character? Number one, I do not get the casting of Ken at all. You know, like Ken does not make sense to me. Ken is a very important character to the story. You know, it is the story of Ryu and Ken, these two different disciples of the same school that take different routes of getting to where they're going. Good friends, kind of somewhat rivals, but they're better friends than they're not. Ken himself, who is a Japanese man with some Caucasian American heritage, who grew up in the States, but moved back to Japan to train under his grandfather's friend, doesn't look like somebody who I just described. Ken is the type of guy who canonically bleaches his hair because he wanted to fit in with the beauty standards of the country he was raised in. That's why Ken has blonde hair. The actor they picked does not look like a Japanese man who bleaches his hair to fit in with the American side of his family. And I think that's the worst offender out of them, but a lot of them are kind of weird. I like the guy who plays Ryu. I think he looks fine. David Dasmalchian looks fine as Bison. I would prefer Bison to be a bigger guy, honestly. But the fact that we already have like the Raul Julia look for him, and that seems what they're going to be doing with Dasmalchian here, it's fine. He looks cool in the suit. I'm not going to complain too much on it. Chun-Li, I don't know if you're going to find... we've talked about Chun-Li on the show before. I don't think you're going to find a woman with the proper thighs for Chun-Li that probably fits the role. So I'm mostly fine with her too. They picked someone who's Chinese to do it, which is the most important part. Jason Momoa as Blanca. So here's the thing. He's like the one where the background doesn't bother me at all, as long as we don't flash back to before he was as we know Blanca is. As long as Jason Momoa is always after the change, the mutation, where he's just this green, orange-haired, radioactive Oompa Loompa guy, I'm perfectly fine with that. Because he looks like Blanca. In the poster, he looks a lot like Blanca. That's all we need. I don't even care that he's not Brazilian, because it's like, he's basically a Hulk at this point, right? Balrog looks goofy. We knew it was 50 Cent. I thought actually he was going to look even goofier as Balrog than he did, and Balrog kind of looks goofy in the game anyway, because he was the actual original M. Bison. They switched a lot of the names around because he was supposed to just be Mike Tyson. So as somebody who is a cartoonish parody of Mike Tyson, I think 50 Cent's doing an all right job with that look. Guile with Cody Rhodes, the wrestler. He just looks just like Guile. It literally just looks like Guile. I have no complaints about Guile. He's probably the most fitting looking one out of everybody that they've showed off the posters for. I saw some people complaining that half the cast were wrestlers. I'm like, wrestlers are actors. Okay. And there's probably some of the only people with the builds that you'll find to properly play Street Fighter characters. I'm kind of glad they went to some wrestlers for them. Dhalsim looks really good. I like Dhalsim's look. E Honda genuinely just looks like a sumo wrestler. I don't know if this guy, his very Japanese name, if he was a sumo wrestler before or not, but he's got the look of it. That's all that matters. Zangief with Olivier Richters looks just like Zangief. Straight up. I saw that guy in Reacher in the last season. He was really good in Reacher. Very good antagonist for him because the dude's like 7'2" or something like that. So you need somebody that big to make Reacher look small. Like a genuine monster of a man in stature. So perfect. Zangief needs to tower over everyone else in the cast. That's what he does. The only person who's supposed to be like close to him in height is Hugo, who I don't think is in this movie. Literally based off of Andre the Giant, who also was about 7'2". I don't know if this movie's successful enough, they'll make another one, and maybe Hugo will be brought in later.